Well, good morning and welcome to the Daily Present. And yesterday I was having a bit of a rant about things that really grind my gears in the personal development world. One of those things being, uh, no, well, multiple things really, but one of those things particularly being toxic positivity, people who have almost like a cult of positivity in the things that they do. And interestingly enough, someone else was having a rant about that yesterday, which was my friend Lee Chambers. Hi, Lee.
Good morning, John.
Well, it's great to be speaking to you. We're going to have a quick chat well, if I can get the right titles on, just after the titles. We'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so toxic positivity. Tell me what you were ranting about. What were you saying yesterday?
Yeah, so my frustrations are born out of me being in the well-being in the business world and navigating both of those as a psychologist and entrepreneur. But from a very ethical standpoint and from a very realistic understanding of human behaviour, uh, how we're built, and ultimately seeing course after course being brought into the matrix that basically promises things that are either not possible in a short period of time, and really setting people's expectations to fail, and then some of the behavior around that. So, I mean, I've seen courses suggesting that they can help you become stress free even in stressful times. And we all know that stress free it's not a possibility. We have different types of stresses in our lives. We're able to utilize stress in different ways. But truth is, stressors are all around us. You can't escape that fact. And seeing courses as well that will really very much like squish your negative thinking so you become a positive person. And just this idea that ultimately, if you can be incredibly resilient like we can and you'll survive through the pandemic, okay, well, the reality is resilience in itself is become a real buzzword to sell courses, which is a real bugbear of mine because most people are not able to give a clear definition of what it is.
Yeah.
And resilience in itself, if it's this idea of being robust and suppressing your emotions and suppressing how you feel to get through it, that's not resilience in its pure essence.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what it comes down to, John, is a lot of these courses are utilising a lot of psychological hooks to pull people in, and then simply not delivering what they say they can because it's either not possible, and ultimately the finding vulnerable people and pulling them in, taking the money off them, and not giving them something that they can utilise, something that they can really take forward, and that in itself is not ethical.
Ultimately creating unrealistic expectations, but so many people are out doing that, and most of them are doing it in the name of making a buck and making a quick buck at that. But what people, if you're given the choice, and I think this is the thing that comes down to, when you're presented with the choice of doing the hard work to get a result or a magic pill solution, which one is more appealing? The instant magic pill solution, please. I had a really good chat with a psychologist friend of mine, Maiten Panella. I'm going to bring her on again soon. And one of the things she was saying is that a lot of these courses and programs, similar to what you're saying, just mask what's really going on with people. They don't actually do it. They might go there and feel they've done something, and then an issue crops back up again, and think, "Oh, I thought I dealt with that." You did a bit, maybe, but you didn't. You didn't perhaps of it, but because maybe get people telling you that you have that, oh, you're 100% fine now. They think that there's something wrong when it comes back, or there's you thing wrong. People end up usually blaming themselves rather than whatever is supposed to have sorted out the issue, and rather than the person who did that is like, well, it worked for everybody else. I don't hear anybody else talking about these things, and ultimately they end up probably not really getting what they need.
No, and I think so often it's a case of, like you say, a lot of these courses give people surface level content that allows them to surface level feel like they're making a difference. Obviously, so often how we feel is based on being human for a start, and we experience the whole range, the whole spectrum of emotions for a reason. And the ability to express those healthily actually requires us to accept that there are some days we're not going to feel great. And a lot of these courses tell you that you just need to be positive, and that stops you from finding ways to express negative emotions healthily, which is something that you need to kind of build over the long term. And that's building that self-awareness as well. And unfortunately, a lot of these courses are almost anti-self-awareness. It's me, the expert, will give you the answers, will bring you into a community where all this community will support you. And truth be told, a lot of this kind of in the world of self-development is not really selling anything self. It's all external. And that's the real biggest frustration of mine, because it becomes really a case of we can help you, I can help you, you've got problems, I will solve them. I'll give you some tips to help you on the surface. I'll not treat the root cause. It's like saying that, oh, mindset will solve everything. Well, mindset is a lens that we put a lot of things through. But if you've had trauma, your mindset isn't going to fix that.
Exactly that. And that deeper level issues need a bit of deeper work. And I guess these are all the things that people don't want to hear. But and I apologize to everyone for my internet connection today. I can't talk about it. But the reason why I tend to refer to this as the cult of positivity is because people end up doing these thought-stopping techniques, which is a mind control technique. And I'm supposed to be positive all the time, so you end up suppressing what's really going on, but also project this version of yourself to other people, trying to convince yourself and everyone else that you're super positive all the time, and you end up not being authentic, not being true to yourself and your emotions. But then in those communities have not really support, but more peer pressure to continue that and show up as that version of yourself, because that's how you're supposed to be, how everyone else is doing, and everyone ends up being Stepford wives, and not really being a proper human being because of it. And that, to me, is another element that makes it incredibly toxic.
Yeah, so I think for me, there's multiple strands. That one of decreasing authenticity, because people are not able to be themselves, because number one, they feel like they're going to fall out of the community of people being like that. Secondly, it creates an element of shame in people when suddenly they can't be this beacon of positivity all the time. Truth be told, no one is. The way we evolved, we have more negative thoughts than we have positive ones, and negativity sticks to our brain like Velcro because of the fact that not long ago we were prey, and anything that was hunting us down, we needed to be on high alert, and that's how we're wired.
Exactly.
But it preys on that and makes people feel ashamed that they're having a bad day, and it makes them feel ashamed that they've actually bought a course that they don't feel is effective. And that shame stops people going to those places and exploring, navigating those negative feelings. They just suppress it. Just put it to one side and say, look, I can't be like that because I'm supposed to be like this. And not only does it decrease their authenticity, which over time erodes their confidence, starts to make them feel a bit of an imposter, and almost takes them away from their path in life, it also makes them suppress that negativity that needs to come through, needs to be expressed, especially when they hit times of adversity. Because adversity doesn't discriminate, and it affects us all at numerous different points over our life. And if we get into that cycle of what these gurus tell us, that we all just need to put some more positive quotes out there and be part of our positive community, where everything is always sunshine and rainbows and lovely memes and, infographics, then truth be told, you start to forget who you are, and you start to forget how to handle the realities of life. And, it's really sad, because once you get pulled in, if you start to, bring your authentic self into those communities, it shows you down. You get told you're not conform. You start to make it feel like you can't feel like you. And it almost becomes a blend where it can create elements of cult-like followings, where anyone who dissents against, what the overarching umbrella theme is suddenly cast out. And with tribal animals, no one wants to feel like they're going to lose the tribe. the way we evolved were hunted in packs, and if you were the one who was told, "But you're not coming fishing today because you're not agreeing with us here," you go hungry. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of psychological hooks that are utilised in these courses, and the further it gets into business, the worse it becomes.
I'm so glad I'm not the only person out there preaching these messages. But, it's ultimately what people don't want to hear. People would rather hear comforting lies than harsh realities. But also, this does tie into this whole thing of we spend probably more time trying to impress other people, someone that we think other people want us to be, than caring about who we want to be and who we want to be showing up as in the world, and what we need to support as and the businesses and people and the network that's actually going to support us in that, not just try and hold us into this of what we think we should be or what society or our community wants us to project. I think is where a lot of people end up stuck. Do you think that there is a cure for this? That not a magic pill, but I mean, what is the way out for people?
I think it is challenging, and especially when I look at the younger generations, they have grown up very much in that world of instant gratification. There must be a shortcut, and really being in a world where their attention is constantly everywhere in groups online and such. Well, the challenges for them are more significant. But I suppose it's really where I work with my clients is we tend to look at it like so many different aspects of life, taking it into the world of sport, into the world of business, and really peeling it back, because well-being is a skill, and the ability to build skills over time is something that we're taught in education. We're not able to do complex maths straight away. It takes years of gradually building a base to understand the basics to be able to do the more difficult stuff. You don't go to the gym for 6 weeks on the latest workshop and suddenly come out the other side looking like some kind of bodybuilder, do you? And at the same time, in business, very few businesses that exist today in a sustainable form have just taken off like a rocket, and after 6 months of this massive, incredibly big business, it's like all these things take time. And truth is, experimenting with yourself and becoming more self-aware, compounding things to become, a more skilled person also takes time. People don't just wake up and become amazing. And talent's there for things, and we all have different strengths. But ultimately, we have the ability to do more and learn most things in life. But it just requires us to be able to put the effort in. And we all know, John, that telling people, you just need to put more effort, in itself falls into that unfortunate hustle type cycle. So it's the very careful word in helping people understand that they can build skills to be able to utilize themselves instead of looking outside of themselves, actually bringing it back and almost taking yourself apart like a jigsaw, starting to see, what gifts do you have? What strengths do you have? What do you want to achieve? And being able to find that purposeful outcome. Because again, some of these courses work on igniting, short motivation. They make you feel impulsive, so you make decisions quickly. They appear to remove the delay of, being able to achieve these things. The truth be told, human beings are not great when it's going to take 5 years to do that.
No.
It doesn't motivate you instantly on the spot. You have to have a real fire and passion inside of you. And having that burning passion helps you to really build a plan that can look at that delay and say, I'm going to be able to sustain that journey. But when you solve something quick, it triggers that impulsivity. It creates a high level of expectancy for something that's going to happen really quickly. And that increases the value in our minds. And what that does is it makes us make decisions that we wouldn't do if things were truly put down on paper and related back. So for me, it's about building that awareness that the majority of things in life take real time to cultivate. We do compound over time. And quite often, in that 6 weeks, you're putting the foundations in and you see very little difference. But after a year, 2 years, if you look at it consistently, you really start to kind of cherish it and really find a purpose in what you're doing. Because often often people fall into these courses, John, because they're searching for answers. And these courses also target people at vulnerable transition points. And that is, I think, the big thing that annoys me, because the more successful they are, the more they spend on marketing, meaning that they hit people earlier in that chain and stop people hitting a point of awareness from the people like ourselves who are trying to, debunk the fact that so often these courses are not the answer to help people.
There's an old proverb that the hungry man, or we should say the hungry person thinks only food. It's the same with money. If you've got no money to think about, and that makes you susceptible. Makes you susceptible to shysters and con artists, and they will take advantage of it. The reason why they target people who are perhaps most vulnerable is because they're the people who have the most pain and the most desire for urgent resolution. And toxicity in so much of the development world of being focused on self-serving objectives, outcomes, rather than long process, big thinking of who you actually need to be shown and becoming to be the best version of yourself and to show up as that version of yourself the best you can every day under resources and development. But that is a constant life work. It never ends. The journey of growth is ongoing, and it's not. People want to hear. People want to hear fixes. They want the magic pills, and it's like buying a magic potion from a gun brand. It's not going to do it. And people even now probably wouldn't believe that or imagine that it would, which is why we don't let people sell that stuff. But these psychological potions and pills that are doing the same thing and causing exactly the same problems, making people think that they have a solution when they really don't, and thinking it's their fault that it didn't work or there's something wrong with them. It's a big issue. Lee, is there anything? We're going to wrap things up, but is there anything you want to say just before we close off?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of this kind of world, I think there's an increasing awareness of what's going on, and really the biggest challenge is finding those people who are actually attuned to this and going to help you in the longer term, and actually really from a place of wanting to make a difference in the world. Because truth be told, John, working on ourselves is important. The ability to work on ourselves to help others is actually more important than working on ourselves. And I think in the bigger scheme of things, it doesn't matter how great our well-being and how much our mission of fulfillment is if the planet's in pieces, because planetary health is directly linked to our health and our well-being. So really, on that personal journey, we need to start to open out our funnel of vision wider and wider. And that's the beauty of people taking it on a slow compounding process over time. Unfortunately, what a lot of these courses do, they narrow your vision, narrow it, and it's do your research and really look. It's very easy to fake testimonials. It's very easy to create elements of wishful identification by, these people showing, oh, I've made it here, and you can make it too. And just be very mindful that they have built, so often built communities around people who believe, and therefore it's easy to get pulled in. So do your research and really find out what you want before you go and decide to go out there, because what happens is if you search before you've got that clarity yourself, sometimes we don't know what we want, but we should always have an idea, because the more solid an idea we have in our mind, the less susceptible we are to get pulled into pain for something that's not going to help us achieve what we want to achieve.
Yeah, great words, Lee. I love your wisdom. If you want to hear more of Lee, and you enjoyed hearing us chatting together, you can hear over an hour of it on the Speaking podcast episode that went up Friday, and I'll make sure that gets fully loaded onto YouTube as well very shortly. I really thank you, and I appreciate you for joining me this morning. I think it's useful conversation. It's so important for people. I hope we can come back together and rant again or talk again in the future very soon. But it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Lee. Have a great rest of your day. Everyone else, make sure you subscribe to the show and look out for tomorrow's episode. Hopefully, I have all the internet issues be back to the usual track, and no ranting tonight, but always some good content for you. I'll see you again next time.